You ever watch someone fly off an ATV like a ragdoll and think, yeah, you had that coming? Because that's exactly what went through my mind when Karen's shiny red Polaris hit the hidden pressure plate I buried by the edge of my barley field. Tires popped, plastic flew, and Karen, queen of the HOA, screamed like someone cancelled her brunch. And I just sat there with my coffee, watching it all unfold like I was at the movies. But hey, let me back up a sec. This whole thing didn't start with a trap. It started with a fence. A stupid fence. See, I'm a retired army engineer. Quiet life, country air, a plot of land just outside an overbearing HOA-run neighborhood in Central Texas. I bought that land to get away from people, from rules, from meetings about trash bin placement. But peace, as it turns out, doesn't come free. And it definitely doesn't come without a Karen. My land backed right up to a narrow strip of road the HOA called community maintained, but was technically outside the authority. I figured, no problem, boundaries are boundaries, right? Wrong. It didn't take long before I learned the rules don't apply when your neighbor is married to the HOA president. First time I met her, she rode up in a golf cart, pastel sweater around her neck, the kind of person who carries a clipboard in their soul. She squinted at my fence and said, "That's not in line with community aesthetics." I told her my land wasn't in the community technically, and she smiled like I just challenged her to a duel. From that moment, I was public enemy number one. At first, it was petty glares at the grocery store, snide comments at the local farmers market about outsiders. I ignored her. Figured if I kept to myself, she'd find a new victim. But then came the tracks. It started with tire ruts deep ones cutting across the edge of my barley, flattening seedlings. I thought it was some punk kid. I put up posts, ropes, a sign that said, private property. 2 days later, all of it was knocked down. Then one morning, while I'm sipping coffee and watching the mist roll off the field, I see her Karen on a bright red ATV, hauling through my land like she's late for a spa appointment. Not a glance, not a pause. Just flying mud and engine noise. That night, I knocked on her door. Her husband answered, already looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Then she stepped into the doorway, arms crossed, smirk ready. "I'm guessing you're here to complain." "Yep," I said. "You're cutting through my land. That's trespassing." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Sweetheart," she said, "I've been using that path for years. It's just dirt. You're barely using it." I stood there stunned. Her husband mumbled something about not worth the fight and shut the door. So I did what anyone does when someone's treating their land like a shortcut. I called the sheriff. They were polite, but basically shrugged. "Without damage or a confrontation, there's not much we can do," they said. "Get footage, build a case." So I did. I installed trail cams, hid cameras in birdhouses. Over the next few weeks, I caught her tearing through my property 6 times. Once, she even waved at the camera. Another time she stopped, looked directly at the lens, and revved the engine before tearing off. It would have been funny if it weren't so infuriating. And then she busted one of my irrigation lines. Flooded half the edge of my crop. Cost me a few $100 and a week of repairs. I mailed her the bill, got it returned with LOL scribbled on the envelope. That's when the switch flipped. I stopped trying to reason with her. She wasn't a neighbor, she was an invading force. And, well, I spent a lot of years figuring out how to stop those. Now don't get me wrong, I wasn't planning to hurt her. I'm not that guy. But I wanted her to know she wasn't welcome. So I dug in. Literally. I mapped out her favorite part: southern edge of the property, slight downhill slope, easy acceleration. I bought a retractable spike strip, legal, non-lethal, made for farm security. Dug a trench, installed a pressure plate, buried it all under soft dirt. Nothing fancy, but enough to make a point. Next morning, I sat on my porch like usual, coffee in hand. Heard the hum of the ATV before I saw it. She came flying down the road, hit the curve, right over my field bum. Spikes popped up like angry little devils. Front tires exploded, she screamed, ATV spun out and flipped once, landing in a ditch like a sad carnival ride. She crawled out, dazed, muddy, missing a shoe, sunglasses gone. She looked up at my porch and saw me just sitting there, watching, sipping my drink. I didn't wave. I didn't even blink. Her husband showed up 20 minutes later, panicking, pacing, shouting. Tow truck came, dragged the wreck off. I knew what was coming next. The following week, someone knocked over my mailbox, unplugged my irrigation timer, redirected a FedEx package. Petty stuff. And an unofficial looking letter from the HOA, hand-delivered, accusing me of creating a public hazard and threatening a fine. I invited the board rep in, sat him down with a cup of coffee, and laid out my evidence videos, maps, damage logs. He looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Karen's husband is calling an emergency board meeting, he said, voice low, they want to fine you anyway. So I called my lawyer, Dana sharp as a tack, no patience for bullies. We prepped everything: trespassing violations, property damage claims, and civil harassment suits, just in case. HOA meeting night felt like a showdown. Room packed, Karen in a neck brace, her husband pacing like a politician. He spun a tale about reckless behavior, military-grade traps, danger to residents. Then it was my turn. I walked up, hit play on the video screen, Karen joyriding, laughing, crushing my irrigation, then the crash. Room went dead silent. I passed out screenshots of our Facebook post, Dirt Road Diva, Shortcut Queen. One board member looked horrified. Her husband sputtered, called it aggressive, said I should be fined anyway. I calmly pulled out an email from the sheriff's office saying I was within my rights, that the trap was legal, and she'd been warned. Vote wasn't even close. Fine denied. Instead, Karen got a warning. And the best part. As they tried to leave dramatically, the door jammed. People laughed. Like, really laughed. It was over. Or so I thought. Thing is, people like Karen don't take public humiliation well. A few weeks later, I got a package. No return address. Inside was a tiny brass sculpture, her ATV, flipped over in mud, with a plaque that said retired. No letter. No explanation. But I got the message. She knew. She finally knew. So now, when I sit on my porch and look at my field quiet, green, undisturbed, I can't help but think about that moment. The tire pop. The silence after. The look on her face. That's when I knew peace doesn't always come easy, but sometimes, it's just a spark away. What do you think? Did I go too far? Or was that the only language someone like Karen would ever understand? Let me know in the comments. Let's talk about boundaries, respect, and what happens when community becomes control.